Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of the Book Review Blog. Today we're going to review the book Everything's Eventual by Stephen King. This is a book of short stories. There are 14 of them, and so like my other reviews of Stephen King books of short stories, I'm going to split this book up into two different reviews. So because there's 14, I can split it pretty evenly. So let's get started. The first story that he's done is called Autopsy Room 4, and it's about a man named Howard Cottrell, and he is golfing, and he hits his ball, kind of far into the rough, and he reaches to go get it, and, he has to reach under a shrub or a tree or a bush or something. And the next thing that he knows, he's in a very strange place, and it's dark, and he hears voices, outside, but he hears them, but they're, muffled, and he's kind of lost feeling, and other things like that. So, and eventually what he realizes is, again, with all of the voices, and he knows it's like medical workers, because they keep talking about medical terms and medical equipment. And what he soon realizes is that he is in a body bag, and these medical workers are about to perform an autopsy on him. And so eventually, he has to let them know before it's too late that he is actually alive, and something is wrong with him, but obviously where he can't speak, but he is still alive. So again, that main story is figuring out ways that he can tell them that he's still alive. So the second book is called The Man in the Black Suit, and it's an old man. His name is Gary, and he tells about a time in his youth where he was about 9 years old, and he was on a fishing expedition where he meets the actual devil. This man, or this devil, that he meets, doesn't give him any, doubt about that he's the devil. He says, basically, I'm the devil, and I'm going to eat you. I'm going to kill you. And so he, is of course, very scared about this, and he pleads and says, no, you're not going to kill me. But one thing that the devil does tell Gary is that his mother has died. And so, Gary is, of course, very sad about this, and he doubts him. He's like, no, you're lying. But there's a part of Gary that says, well, maybe he might be true, because he's the devil, and he, yet he's a liar, but he also mixes that in with some truth. So, eventually Gary does get away from the devil, and he finds his father, and, the first question that, of course, Gary asks is Mom okay, and all that. So, and that's where I'm going to leave this story, because, again, I want you to read these. It was funny. I must say that this story kind of reminded me of, the song, the Charlie Daniels song, The Devil Went Down to Georgia, because, it's another story of a man who meets the devil and kind of gets away from him with his life, Anyway, the next story that I'm going to review is called All That You Love Will Be Carried Away. And this story is about a man named Alfie Zimmer who... Excuse me. Excuse me about that. He is a traveling salesman, and he, has traveled the country, and when the story opens, he's in Nebraska, and it's snowing outside, and he is in a Nebraska hotel. And he comes to this Nebraska hotel with the idea that he's going to kill himself. And despite, that he has a wife and a daughter at home who love him and he loves them, but he's figured he's going to kill himself. And one of the things that, a couple things that stop him, or that kind of pause this initial suicide, is one thing that he has a notebook that he has filled with, like, graffiti that he's found in men's bathrooms, and that's kind of funny because, like, he reads some of that he has, so some of it's gross and some of it's pretty funny. And so he's like, well, what's going to happen with this book? Because he has thought, oh, maybe this book might be able to get published, and because people would find this funny, you know. And then also, when he looks out his window, he sees a field. Next to the hotel is a field, and next to the field is a farmhouse. And there's a farmhouse that's there, and it has a light on. And I think it's on because he makes a deal with himself that says, if the light stays on, I'm going to not kill myself. If the light turns off, then I will. And so you're left, and that's kind of where the book ends. Like, honestly, that you're kind of left with you not knowing if the light is going to stay on or turn off. And so you don't know, if Alfie's gonna kill him. So they're good Stephen King books, or I like those types of ones where he on my screen it's kind of freezing, so I'm sorry if that's happening. Anyway, the next story is The Death of Jack Hamilton, and this is a fictional story, but it's kind of realistic fiction because it's set in the 1910s, I think, because it deals with John Dillinger's gang. So, I don't remember if he's 1910s or 1920s fame. But anyway, the book, or the story, is narrated by Homer Van Meter, and he is John Dillinger's driver. And in John Dillinger's gang is Homer Van Meter, John Dillinger, and this man named Jack Hamilton. And after a shootout or something, Jack is injured, and there's a bullet in, I think, his chest or his stomach or something. And, obviously these people have just robbed a bank, so they can't go to a hospital and save him. So they go along and try to find a way to save Jack's life. So, one thing they do is they steal a car and they drive to Aurora, Illinois, and they're holed up in, like a friend's hideout type thing, and they try to save Jack's life. And it's just kind of interesting with the different situations that go on, the different, like, conversations that go on, especially because, I don't know if Homer Van Meter was a real person or Jack Hamilton was a real person, but John Dillinger certainly was. So, that's kind of funny to imagine that he's having this conversation with people who either were real or were not real. So I don't believe that the story was real, but regardless. The next story is called In the Death Room, and that is a story about a man named Fletcher, and Fletcher works for the New York Times, and he's a reporter for the New York Times, and he has uncovered a story about, I'm assuming, like, drugs in Central America, but the people of Central America, or these drug lords, or whoever this is involved, hasn't liked what he said, and also doesn't like what a partner of his, has said, and also that he also knows a cocaine dealer terrorist that's in Central America, and that's partly also why Fletcher has been taken captive by this Ministry of Information. And so this whole story is him in this kind of interrogation room of this Ministry of Information, and these interrogators are asking him questions about what he knows, and Fletcher is like, either, whether I tell them or not, I'm going to get killed because, I know they think I know too much, so they're going to kill me regardless of whether I tell them what I know or not. So basically, also, this story is him trying to escape this death room. So I'll leave you there to see if he does or not. It was kind of funny because this also kind of reminded me of the book 1984 at the very end with Winston, and because the Ministry of Information kind of reminds me of the times of 1984. So the next story is called The Little Sisters of Eluria. And this is a Dark Tower story where it has Roland in it. I mean, he's the only one of the Dark Tower gang that's in it because supposedly it has taken place before the Gunslinger has started. So, anyway, Roland is, of course, after the Man in Black, and he comes to a town called Eluria. And he comes across these slow mutants, which if you're a fan of the Dark Tower, you'll know what these are. They are just kind of things that will attack you. And so he is injured. And the next thing that Roland knows is that he's been taken to a quote-unquote hospital in Eluria. And he's been watched over by these nuns. And there are 5 nuns, and so they're called the 5 Sisters. And their names are Mary, Louise, Michaela, Coquina, and Tamara. And at first, they're like, oh, we will take care of you, we'll get you better. But as Roland stays there for days, and he is not getting any better. And he's actually realizing that these sisters are making him worse by poisoning his food and other things like that. And he starts to see things in this hospital that, because the sisters there's also a man that lives in the hospital, and I'm sorry, I don't think I wrote his name down. But anyway, he learns that this man is a vampire, and the sisters are also vampires or vampiresses or whatever. Because Roland witnesses a kill that they do, and the sisters are like, save some for us, and things like that. So, whether Roland gets out or not is, that's why I want you to read the book. But I mean, if you've known the Dark Tower, you kind of already know that answer. But regardless, the last story that I'm going to review in this review is called Everything's Eventual. Hence the title of the story. Or the actual book. This story is about a man named Dinky, and he is 19 years old. He's a high school dropout, and he's like, school really never interested me, but he's like, I live the lap of luxury. I have an apartment, or a nice house. All my things are done for me. My food is given to me. My bills are paid for me. And what you learn throughout the story is that he works for a company called Trans Corporation. And this head of this Trans Corporation, a man named Mr. Sharpton, seeks Dinky because Dinky has the ability to kill people by telepathically, or he'll have like visions of people who he initially wants dead, and eventually originally these were like people that he knew, that like either bullies or people that he had run-ins with that he didn't like. And so what he would do is he would take a piece of paper and he would like draw these weird symbols, and on top of the symbols he would write this person's name. And somehow, mysteriously, this person would end up dead. So, either from suicide or from mysterious consequences, this person would end up dead. So, anyway, so that's kind of the story of it. And that's where I want to leave you, because the story is pretty good. And that's the end of this first part of the review. So, I bid you all farewell and happy reading.